Good evening. My name is Chris Verdugo, the Executive Director of the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, and I want to welcome you to tonight's conversation with San Francisco Chronicle arts and culture reporter Tony Bravo and author, activist, and all-around amazing human being, Chasten Buttigieg. Before we start, I want to thank Orinda and Dog-Eared Books for serving as our retail partners for this event. Remember to support our small local bookshops and all small businesses right now more than ever. Last June, I had occasion to meet Chasten and Pete when they kicked off Pride Month at 170 Valencia in the Mission, our home and the country's first National Queer Arts Center. That was, of course, during Pete's extraordinary presidential run. Their love for country, arts, and especially each other was undeniable, and the mood in the room that afternoon was electric. Through the campaign, Chasten shared his passion for arts and arts education and the power that arts have to transform lives and save lives, as well as herald and propel changes in attitudes and culture. Here at SFGMC, we share that passion and that perspective. For all the obvious reasons, and just a few weeks ago, we honored Chasten with our 2020 Inspiration Award. I'm thrilled that tonight, we get to experience more of his inspiring story. But first, I'd like to introduce tonight's presenting partner, an author in her own right, a friend, and just an extraordinary ally and advocate to the LGBTQ community, Joni Binder.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you to the mighty San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. Thank you to our friends and great partners, Orinda Books and Dog-Eared Books in the Castro. Thank you to all of our guests here tonight. We have a great evening planned for you. I have the joy of introducing our two special guests tonight. Here in San Francisco, Chronicle arts and culture reporter Tony Bravo is known for his astute, whip-smart writing on everything from fashion to fine art to drag, brightly and frankly assessing cultural goings-on and helping shape our social landscape. I'm so lucky also to know him as a friend. I met Chasten Buttigieg in early 2019 at my home when my husband and I hosted him and his husband, Pete Buttigieg, on their first visit to San Francisco after Pete announced his historic run for president. I had known Pete for some years and have gotten to know Chasten over the last year and a half. Like the rest of the world, I was also welcomed into Chasten's inner life on the campaign trail and in his beautiful, funny, tear-jerking, and gut-wrenching memoir, I Have Something to Tell You. In addition to their both being soulful, funny, and honest writers, Chasten and Tony have other things in common as well. Things that prompted my thinking that tonight's conversation had to happen. As someone whose life was shaped by my access to a robust arts education, I recognized in both Tony and Chasten kindred spirits. It's not an exaggeration to say that learning about, participating in, and making art made us who we are and helped us become resilient, productive, and civic-minded people. That San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus is building the nation's first, or the world's first, LGBTQ Art Center made that circle complete. And that circle is what I am very excited to invite you to join with us tonight. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Chasten. And all of our guests, please settle into the glow of your devices and help me welcome Tony Bravo and Chasten Buttigieg.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Joni. Chasten, I have been hearing about you not only on the national stage for the last couple of years, but through Joni. And I'm so pleased that just a couple of theater kids get to talk about art and politics and what it's like to be part of this LGBTQ community tonight.
Conversation and Joni, thank you so much for all of your hard work in making this happen and for your belief in us on the campaign trail. And for anyone who has read the book and heard the story about this like very weird 72-hour quick trip to Europe to try to convince a bunch of Americans abroad, that was probably one of the most physically exhausting things I've ever done. I think that's called whining on the yacht, though, that I got to do it in Europe. But I remember seeing you there. And I remember you being in the back of the room at one point, and I was trying to make any friendly eye in the room to express, like, I am going to pass out. Like at any moment, I might fall over from exhaustion. So Joni, thank you for being there all along the way and believing in me. And thanks for helping set this up.
No, it's my pleasure. And I'm going to go mute now, and I will see you two on the flip side.
All right.
Thank you both.
Okay, so Chasten, let's just start by talking about this week. Girl, it has been a week for our community. I am, of course, talking about the controversial confirmation of Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett this week. A lot of feelings going on among LGBTQ people, especially ones like us that are lucky enough to be in marriages. I want to start because I first really got to know you on Twitter. I want to read 2 of the tweets that you posted the night of the confirmation. Put some queer people on television tonight, every network. Yeah. We've got some things to say about this sham process and a judge who will most certainly vote to harm our community.
Yeah.
And then the next one, I felt was like a rallying cry. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be scared. The best thing you can do right now is vote these people out and get as many people as you possibly can to do the same. Hold on to that feeling in your stomach and channel that fear and righteous anger into the ballot box.
Yeah.
What was going through your head that evening? Were you and Pete watching the process together? Where were you when this was going down?
I actually think Pete was somewhere on the campaign trail. You know, I always want to make sure that I'm using my platform for good. I'm sure we'll talk about social media maybe a little bit later tonight, but
I think it might come up.
I know I sometimes get it wrong, but I always want to believe that that is a platform for me to try to help other people feel seen or understood. You know, and people are feeling a lot of emotions right now. And I don't want to contribute to, you know, the hellfire of Twitter. But, you know, when you find yourself with a platform and people are paying attention to what you have to say, and they also look up to you for comfort and guidance. One of the first things I thought of was, you know, what's going to happen is she'll be confirmed, and then we'll cut to these panels on network television that are not reflective or representative of the people who are going to be harmed by her appointment to the Supreme Court. And I just think there should be more queer people on television in general, across the board, you know, whether they're sitting in positions, you know, at the anchor desk, or stories about the queer community. I just think we need more. And I was thinking about, you know, these like post debate panels, you know, where we like cut to Rick Santorum for his opinion on, you know, the debates. Like, I don't want to hear from Rick Santorum tonight. I want to hear from the queer people who are going to be hurt by this judge. I want to hear from women whose rights are going to be up for debate because of the decisions that this court are going to try. I think very much will try to hear and change, you know, and that's just what I was thinking in that moment. Was like, I do not want to turn the TV on tonight and just see, you know, a bunch of straight white people talking about Amy Coney Barrett as if it's not a big deal.
If anybody wants to know about Rick Santorum, they can always Google him, as far as I'm concerned.
Like, I mean, what are we doing? What is this platform used for? And if people are having an intense debate about this person, then I want to see that debate on television being presented by people whose rights will be debated in the court, and especially rights that might be taken away because of this person, right? And I got to meet thousands of people on the campaign trail and hear the most heart-wrenching and and uplifting stories of queer people around this country, and I want those people on television. I want them telling their stories.
So we will get all into social media a little bit later, and we will talk about the campaign trail. We will talk about, I have something to tell you. First, given your love of arts, your career as an arts educator, I'd like to know, was there a particular piece of art that you remember from your early years that really made an impact on you? Whether it be a play, a musical, a painting, a film, is there something that rises to the top when you think about why you are an artist and an arts educator?
From childhood, not really. I mean, I love my parents dearly, as you read in the book, but reading wasn't really encouraged, and so I never really. I mean, I read a lot as a kid, but I never really saw myself reflected in a lot. Like, I liked Harry Potter because I was like, oh, this kid's a geek, and he gets to run away from his family, and there's something special about him. He gets to save the day. But it wasn't really until I got to college that I had an advisor who, I was sort of out at the time, really struggling with my identity, didn't really know how to talk about it. And she, after a rehearsal one night for a play, she was like, I have some things I want you to watch. And she sent me home with a copy of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, Hedwig and the Angry Inch, The Birdcage. And I think it was like her little signal that, we can talk about these things. And I remember that was the first time I had ever really consumed like queer media. I'd seen like Will and Grace and Ellen DeGeneres growing up, but that, wasn't like, I didn't necessarily like completely see myself reflected in it. I liked it, but I was terrified to watch Will and Grace because I didn't want my family to, figure out my secret. And then college is really what opened it up. For me, where I started to realize that there were queer people and queer authors and playwrights and poets and journalists, and that there was space for me in the classroom.
Okay, so one of the moments when you talk about an artist in the book that really spoke to me, because I think those of us on Twitter have had a moment like this, is when a certain artist started following you on the platform. Do you want to say who that was?
Oh, Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yeah, that's,
Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, that's absolutely who I'm talking about. That's no small thing.
No, and I don't know how I got his attention. And it was early on in the campaign process, and people had started writing stories about my Twitter, which I wasn't like trying to do anything on there. I was just being myself. And I remember I was preparing dinner in the kitchen, and Pete was downstairs doing the laundry. And the way he tells it, I let out this like unearthly screech, and he comes up expecting to see, fingers rolling around on the floor. And I'm just like gleefully jumping up and down, saying that Lin-Manuel Miranda followed me on Twitter. And, Pete, as much as we love him, he just like, he's not always there with celebrities. So it was like, oh, cool. And I went back to doing the laundry.
I appreciate a politician that underplays a moment, quite frankly. It's
like, okay,
a nice
great.
change of pace. So let's talk about growing up. So you were very much a Midwestern guy. The book is very much, I think, written in a voice that some of us Californians might think of as kind of Midwestern nice. So you grow up in a family in Traverse City, or right outside. That's a point of debate in the book at one point, what township you fell into. And you describe a very loving, very outdoorsy childhood. You talk about walking your steer for the 4-H club.
Yep.
I just immediately had visions of Best in Show, the movie about dog shows. And
very much Best in Show.
is walking a steer like walking a standard poodle? I mean, I take it involves a little more strength.
Yeah, a little more strength, not as glamorous. And outfits aren't that attractive either.
But you did take classes on how to present, how to do showmanship, I think it's called.
Yeah. Yep.
So was that kind of your first theater education that you remember, learning how to show your steer?
Yeah, well, I was in theater from a very young age, but 4-H was where you really won the trophies that would wow your parents. I took 4-H very seriously because, in a way, it was a way for me to conform. And I guess I was really good at it too, and so I thought that by winning these trophies and being really good at showmanship, other boys would leave me alone. And it would be something that would impress my family. And then we didn't have to talk about any of my other differences because I was really good at this like very macho, like hyper masculine thing that is taken very seriously up here. Actually, that freezer behind me is like full of 4-H meat.
All steer or beef or anything else? I know that there was talk of buffalo meat early on in your memoir.
Yeah, so that's not a 4-H thing, but my dad used to pick up hours at the bison factory here in town. There's like a farm, and we would help process some of the bison.
Out here in the land of veganism, that sounds exotic.
What's that?
That sounds very exotic out here in the land of hyper veganism.
I was gonna say, sometimes when I say these things out loud, it's like it really is different.
So one of the big kind of tugs, the push and pull in these early chapters is you do have a great deal of affection of where you're from, but you did not always fit in. I feel like a lot of queer people are going to recognize aspects of their own lives, especially if they come from small towns, a type of achieving, a type of trying to be the best at things in order to fit in, to find that place for yourself. But also a strong desire to see the bigger worlds. Were those tensions ever present in your childhood? I mean, I feel like even now you are still in some chapters of the book trying to reconcile kind of a very specific queer experience of loving where you're from, but feeling like there's more out there. Maybe there's more places where you will fit in better.
Yeah, I mean, something that was really important for me in writing this book was to be extremely honest about what I was going through, especially as it related to internalized homophobia, homophobia from community and church and government and family, and all of the things that I either did or forced myself to do in order to survive. And in many places in this country, right, it's still a reality that people aren't free to be who they are. And I wanted to write a book that hopefully other people saw themselves reflected in. Go ahead.
One of the big experiences you talk about opening your world is your year abroad in Germany. Was it just getting out of the Midwest, out of your small town, or was it specifically being in Germany that you think opened things up for you so much?
Well, I'd studied German in high school, and the scholarship was just the golden ticket. It was the way out. It wasn't that I wanted to study in Germany. I thought it would be neat. I had never been to Europe. But to me, it was the golden opportunity that it was paid for. It was a scholarship to the government. So I didn't have to scare my family with, cost, because we definitely couldn't have afforded a program like that. And then for me, it was just a prime opportunity to escape. And that's exactly what it was for me. I mean, I learned a lot, my German improved, but for me, it was foundational because I finally realized, one, I'm gay, and two, there are things that make me who I am that are very different from my hometown. And that finally made me feel like it was a good thing, that I was surrounded by other people who appreciated those qualities about me. And so Germany wasn't just about, an academic year in a German high school. It was so much more than that.
Germany is also where you kissed a boy for the first time. Sorry, spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't read the book yet.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
No, go on.
Oh, I wanted to write about that too. I wish I would have read a book like this when I was younger. And I feel like in political memoirs, we're not supposed to talk about things like that, talk about anyone other than the person that we're married to. And I just, again, wanted to write a book that I hope if younger, especially younger queer people pick it up, they can read about some of the awkwardness and the heartbreak and the confusion, and hopefully see and feel those things that I was going through. And Germany was, that was, I don't think it was like I had the confidence to do it. I think it's that like I drank enough like warm beer to give me the confidence to kiss a boy for the first time. But it was like a whole new world presented itself to me. Of course, it was like sloppy, and there were like teeth knocking, and like no one knows where to put your hands, and it was a bad kiss, right? But then it was over, and for me, it was like, oh my God, I'm still alive, and that was amazing and awful at the same time, and I was just realizing so much about myself. In a pretty safe space, because I was far away from all of the people and places that I thought would hate me for being who I am.
So you get home to the United States and you've had this big realization in Germany. What is the coming out process then like with your family?
Yeah. So I in Germany, I had this friend who sat me down, we were having a heart to heart, and I just broke down and was like, I think I'm gay, I'm having these feelings. And I really did believe when I went to Germany that it was a bad thing. I mean, I grew up in a very conservative place. My church told me it was wrong. My classmates made it very clear that if you were queer, you were somehow twisted and disgusting. My government definitely made it clear that we weren't deserving of equal rights. And I truly did believe that I would be such an embarrassment to my family. And then I had this friend who was just like, it's okay to be gay. Maybe you're just gay. That's fine. And it was the first time someone had, looked me in the eye and just told me I was worthy of all of the things that I never thought I would be worthy of. Love and acceptance and friendship and community. So I go home and I ride on that feeling, right? That I am who I am. I'm going to be who I am and be who I want to be. And rather than go through the awkward, potentially heartbreaking thing of telling my family I'm gay, and of course thinking that they would kick me out and hate me, I just ran away from home. I wrote them a letter and then I ran. I packed a bag and I just ran for a while.
There's so many things about your story, including sort of the preemptive, not quite rejection of your family, but running away perhaps before you could be rejected.
Yeah.
That is a story that I hear from so many queer people. It's such a universal situation.
I did not want my mother. I loved my mother. I was a mama's boy, and I never wanted to see her cry. I never wanted to be the person who caused her pain. And to me, it wasn't like, oh, this person might hate me, and that's a terrible thing for them to be. It was, I have to spare her this pain. And my dad runs a small business, a very well-known small business in our community. And I didn't want him to, lose business, or when he's filling up his truck at the gas station for someone to, poke fun that Terry's got a queer son. I didn't want any of these things. These were like millions of thoughts swirling in my head, that my parents would be rejected from their church and people would make fun of my parents and they would lose their friends. And it wasn't about my feelings. It was all about theirs. And I really did think that I was sparing them by running away and fearing that rejection of truly having the people that you love just cast you out.
But this story does have a happy ending with your family, right? Your parents do accept you.
I'm an extremely lucky person, because not everybody gets that happy ending. They don't have, a literal rainbow at the end of their story, right?
Right.
I was bouncing around on friends' couches, and I remember exactly where I was driving home from work, and my mom called and said, you need to come home. Your dad and I are scared. We want you to come home. And I did. I drove right home to my parents' house and I just broke down crying in their living room. And I remember my mom saying, you know, we love you. We are scared for you. We're terrified. We have no idea what this means and we have no idea what to expect for you. And I remember my mom standing in the kitchen saying, life is going to be so much harder for you.
I feel like this is the moment if we had a live audience where we would get the gay sigh. I think there's a lot of families where that's the dynamic, this issue of not wanting life to be hard for their children because of who they are.
Yeah. And there was, you know, and then we started addressing homophobia, right? The thing that I love about my parents is how willing they are to have hard conversations. You know, we would talk at the dinner table and someone might say something that is, you know, a homophobic trope or a homophobic joke. And I would say, like, I'm going to stop you. Like, that really hurts me. Or, you know, I don't like it when you say things like, that's really gay. Or we don't call people fag anymore. You know, we don't make jokes like this. And my family, anytime I would say something to my parents like, oh, that's a little sensitive, or, oh, I wish you wouldn't say that, they would immediately apologize and say, you know, they were always eager to learn and eager to grow because they really did want to be good allies, especially because they were surrounded with other people who did not get it at all. And that, to me, you know, I got to leave Traverse City again, right? I left, I went to college, I moved to Milwaukee and Chicago, and my parents have been here the whole time. And I know that some of their friendships soured and they had to be the spokespeople for gayness, or, you know, in their own communities and social circles. And that meant a lot to me, that they wanted to learn about how to be a better ally.
You talk about a lot of issues that people, especially political partners, don't get into on the campaign trail or in memoirs. Coming out is one. Another area that I just thought this is so honest and something that is going to be relatable to so many people is the financial aspect of it. Student loans, medical debt. I mean, you come very clean about the fact that you did not have a lot of education about student loans, that a lot of American students don't understand the full parameters of what this borrowing is. It's been a journey for you to get to a place where you feel like you're economically sound and where you are not worrying about what's coming in the mail, what the next final notice is. What was that journey like? I know that your husband was really instrumental in kind of helping you organize some of that, helping you get a handle on that.
Yeah, so I was a first-generation college student, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I went to the financial aid office because I needed aid with my finances. And oftentimes they just said, oh, you need more money, fill out that form, and we can cut you a check, you know, in a couple of weeks. And I just kept taking out loans because my Pell Grant only covered so much, but then I also had a car payment. I didn't splurge. I had a Saturn Ion. A sensible college car. I had rent, food, utilities, books, supplies, and it just wasn't enough. And so I started taking out loans, and then every semester I just kept taking out the same loans to pay my way through college. I had part-time jobs, for pocket money and to kind of help soften the blow, but I had no idea. I had no idea what I was doing. And yeah, when I met Pete, I was bartending, substitute teaching, and letting out my apartment on Airbnb just to get by, just to make the minimum student loan payments and cover living expenses. And I just think there's this sense in politics, like you are not supposed to talk about things like that, like medical debt or student debt and many of the other issues that we cover in the book, because it'll somehow make you seem weak. That if you have student debt, then somehow you have failed at the game of life. Like if you have student debt or medical debt, then somehow you can't get your shit together, right? So why should we trust you to be the first gentleman of the United States? And that's not how our system is built. It's not how it's structured. And it's really sad that so many people are set up to lose at the game of life before they even leave go. And to be honest, I'm a pretty privileged person, right? I mean, I still had parents I could fall back on if I really needed to. I could go live at home in the summer. And it was still tough. And that is definitely something that we need to fix. And then, as you mentioned, come out of college. I'm living in this like spider infested basement apartment, working at Starbucks 24 hours a week just so I can get their health insurance while I'm teaching. And then something really bad happens and I have to go to the emergency room. And it just kind of sealed the deal. I remember sitting in that hospital bed thinking like, I'm done. I just like, how do you even climb out of this at 24?
Have your discussions about medical debt, about what that meant to you in your early 20s, have you had discussions about the feelings behind that with your husband? Do you think it's informed his view of medical debt, of insurance, of public health options at all?
Sure. Yeah, I think so. Shortly after I moved in with Pete and changed my address, the collection bills were coming from my emergency room visit. And, those were hard conversations, really hard conversations. And I think he understood. And that's, it's really hard to keep going when you're not sure if it'll ever add up to anything. You can do the math in your head, how much I'm making this year by, teaching full time and maybe picking up some bartending shifts. And that will not be enough ever to pay off this medical debt and the student debt. And I want to have a family, right? I have all of these goals and dreams. And I think Pete saw that weight when I started explaining, what had happened and what I was trying to do.
So let's talk about how you discovered teaching. You've mentioned that you had several jobs to pay the bills. You, at one point, thought you might be a nurse. You went to nursing school for a while. When did you have that moment where you thought, this is it? Middle school students, theater, I want to be a teacher? Yeah,
I failed miserably in nursing school, but I also, to be honest, was not ready for college. I was not ready for academia. I came out, ran away from home, was trying to figure out who I was. Shortly after I came out, I was sexually assaulted, and that crushed me. I was going to community college at the time, and I just lost trust in men and other people. I didn't know what I was doing. Academically, I couldn't focus on anything, and then I started failing classes. I was working full time. And by the time I made it to Wisconsin the first time, I was waiting tables, working a campus job, working full-time hours and taking a full credit load. And then it wasn't for me. And then I made my way to Eau Claire, started, picked up theater, thought this is the thing that makes me feel the most alive and the happiest. And took a class called Creative Drama, where we were devising curriculum around drama practice, and loved that. Got a job in that in Milwaukee, teaching theater curriculum out in Milwaukee public schools and theater classes. And it was love at first lesson plan. I loved those kids coming into my classroom and seeing how alive they felt and knowing what that felt in my own life, that they loved coming to Mr. Glesman's classroom, that they loved when I came to visit their classroom, and I wanted to feel that way every day. So that's why I eventually decided to go back to grad school and get a degree in education.
So from love at first lesson plan to love at first swipe, let's talk about meeting Pete. So
why wasn't that the title of the book?
Hey, you have another book in you probably. You're not done living yet. So you talked about some trust issues. You dealt with the sexual assaults when you were young. You had a couple of relationships, like many of us do in our 20s, that were not healthy, that were not the relationship you ultimately needed to be in.
Yeah.
It also didn't seem like you were really looking too hard when you met Pete, that you were both on Hinge, you found each other, and it was a situation where things just sort of fit together from your preliminary conversations. Walk me through this a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, my boyfriend before Pete, we had been together a couple years, and one day I was temping, and I was sitting at this desk trying to figure out, what the hell I was supposed to do with the software. And I get this text. It's like, don't come home. I'm going back to my parents for the holidays, whatever. He broke up with me via text message. And from there on,
you. That is like ghosting, Chasten. That's awful.
Yeah. I came home and all of his stuff was gone. And I was just like so done having my heart broken, and, went on so many bad dates, and people weren't interested in what I was interested in. And so I was on Hinge, and I felt like I was having some okay conversations on Hinge, but I was working a lot. So, my boyfriend left, and now I'm paying 2 rents. And so I pick up this bartending gig at a comedy club, and I'm renting out the apartment on Airbnb and like sleeping at friends' houses so I can rent out my apartment to afford the apartment that I'm not sleeping in, and substitute teaching in Chicago public schools. And I'm like a very busy person. And then the summer rolls around, I pick up another job working at Chicago O'Hare for the same exchange program that I went on. I would help make sure that all the kids got on their flights. And I was just killing time at the gate late one night, and saw Pete, and we started talking about Game of Thrones, and I told him like what I was doing, like killing time at the airport with this job, and that was that. And I was like very hesitant though, because I really was kind of done. Sometimes you just like take a break. I couldn't deal with like the rejection and the bad dates. And so Pete and I like FaceTimed for a month. We would, have a respective drink and FaceTime. And for me, it was very important to make sure like he was a normal person and wasn't an axe murderer. And then I eventually drove to South Bend and went on that date.
But you Googled him beforehand. You read his coming out essay, and you knew that this wasn't just a guy in South Bend, Indiana. This was Mayor Pete of South Bend, Indiana. And that wasn't scary for you? That wasn't a moment of hesitation?
It was. Oh, yeah. But at the time, he wasn't like Mayor Pete, right? He was like the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. I didn't know anything about Indiana. But he was the mayor, and I was not political and not really interested in dating a politician. But I was enjoying our conversations, and he was very sweet. And the thing that I really loved about him from the beginning was how inquisitive he was. And he just kept asking me about my life. And, what happened today while I was substitute teaching. And he was asking me about the improv classes I was taking and asking me about my family in Michigan. I was like, why does this guy care so much about my life? And I loved that. And so that's what kind of drove me to go to South Bend and actually go on a date IRL. And there was a lot of hesitation there, because on our very first date, people were coming up to him and talking to him about, mayor stuff. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to sign up for something like that. And he clearly wasn't leaving South Bend anytime soon. So made it a little tricky.
But there were literal fireworks on your first date. Your first in-person date, that is, at the waterfront in South Bend.
Yeah, I know it's pretty gross. It's a Hallmark movie, but we agreed to get drinks, and then drinks turned into dinner, and then like the conversation wasn't over, and he like slyly pulled out these baseball tickets, and the stadium was a couple blocks away. So then we walked over to the stadium, and we get another beer there, and we watch a couple innings of the baseball game, and he really wants to show me this river light display that we have in South Bend. Gorgeous. And so we like walk down to the river, and then we, hold hands while we're walking by the river. And then as the baseball game is ending, they do fireworks at the end of the home games. And yeah, I like couldn't pass it up. I was having like a Julia Roberts Eat, Pray, Love moment. And I was like, I'm going for it.
You're having kind of a Julia Roberts like facial expression right now. You were beaming, Chasten. So another thing that we talked about was this idea that it's still a little bit taboo for some people to meet on apps. I met my husband on an app. You met Pete on Hinge. Why do you think there's a little bit of that that taboo around it? I've never quite understood it as a gay man. It's a part of how we find safe spaces, I think.
Absolutely. I am so glad you said that. This whole book tour has been fun, and I think it's very interesting. You know, when I'm speaking to someone of a different age, they'll be like, "Now, you met the mayor on a dating app? Isn't that scandalous that the mayor was online?" And I have to like walk them through how that process works and explain like how it's not scandalous. It's just, you know, we're living in the 21st century. And then I'll meet, you know, younger journalists, and, you know, we only have 15 minutes for an interview. I'll be like, "And you guys met on Hinge, right?" Like, "Yes, we met on Hinge." "Okay, next question." Like, that's just completely normal. And I think that is exactly what dating apps can be, is a safe space, especially for people in the queer community. Like, I'm up here in Traverse City, Michigan right now, my hometown. We have one gay bar in town. And I remember you could go there when you were 18. And I remember finally working up the courage with some friends to go there because I was so terrified to be there. And I remember people would like drive past the gay bar in their pickup trucks and like spin their wheels so the wheels would like shoot gravel at the people who were like smoking cigarettes outside or just, you know, kind of hanging out. And it wasn't like terribly unsafe, but it was clearly like you're very much profiled there, and not everyone felt safe enough or confident enough or comfortable enough to go there. But another way that you could meet people is by downloading a dating app, and use it for whatever you want to use it for. But that's exactly what it is. It's a safe space. And I got a lot of these weird questions on the campaign trail, like, "Well, I bet you wouldn't tell us if it was a different app." And I don't know why we are putting this stigma on one another that, you know, if you use one type of app over another type of app, then that clearly defines who you are as a person. When you have to remember, like, in many areas of this country, people still don't feel safe enough to go into a gay bar, to even go on a date, you know, with someone in public. There are places in this country where I still don't feel safe enough holding my husband's hand. And I am very glad that we have all of these online platforms and spaces where people can meet safely and feel more confident in themselves and their safety. But I don't, like you said, I don't know why. I guess I do in a way, but I still struggle to understand why we put so much stigma on other people, and we make that such a taboo thing. When, especially now, I mean, everyone's isolated and at home and alone and confused and scared. Like, keep swiping, you know, if it makes you happy.
I've always wondered if it's a degree of internalized homophobia we have, and a reckoning with, you know, the dark alleys that we frequently had to meet in the history of our community, quite frankly.
Well, we've been told we're disgusting, right? We're disgusting, you know, bottom feeder-like creatures that aren't worthy of acceptance or human rights or dignity or love. And of course that trickles into our body and our mindset of what we deserve and what we don't deserve, right? And I disagree. I disagree with that thinking completely.
Well, I know there's at least two people in this conversation for whom dating apps turned out to be okay.
Yeah.
So I love that there was a dual proposal between you and Pete, that you actually proposed first with a watch, which I've been told is a very popular proposal method among men. And then Pete proposed to you a year later with a ring, right? About a year later?
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't want to give everything away. It's in the book.
Yeah, buy the book, everybody. Orinda and Dog-Eared Books.
Yeah, I feel like we could be like shopping channel models. There's a button on the bottom of your screen. Pete and I were going to go on this like very romantic European vacation together. And he was trying to decide if he wanted to run for DNC chair. He stayed back in the States for a couple days to figure that stuff out. I was like, I'm out. And I went to Europe by myself, and I was on this flight where there was a bomb scare. And by the time the flight landed safely, you know, I was terrified and very shaken. It's like, I can't imagine losing this person and never spending the rest of my life with this person. But I knew Pete wasn't quite there yet. And I respected that, and I didn't want to pressure him. And so I thought, you know, it would be cute to give him time and went to this like department store when I got to Berlin and found a watch that I could afford. And when Pete got there, I picked him up at the train station, and he like got his bags to the hotel room, and I was so antsy. It was like, let's go for a walk. Let's go for a walk. And it's like 5 degrees outside. He's like, it's really cold. But yeah, I don't want to give away the whole story. So I proposed with the watch to give him time. And then a year later, I think he must have reached out to my friends, because he knew exactly what I wanted, and, you know, got the beautiful ring and got down on one knee and did the whole thing.
So you get married, you have these dual proposals, and relatively quickly in your newlywed life, Pete asks you another question. And it's about how you would feel if he ran for the Democratic nomination.
Yeah.
What goes through your head? He'd already run for DNC chair at that point.
So
sorry, say again?
I said so selfish.
Yeah, exactly. You've seen a little bit of campaign life at this point. You've seen what it's like when the person you love is being criticized in the public eye. Are you hesitant? Do you feel immediately like this man needs to be in charge of this country? I should absolutely give him this freedom to pursue this. What's the first thing that pops into your head?
Yeah, I mean, I was just really naive, and I was like, okay, sure, like keep having those conversations, keep entertaining the idea. I look forward to learning more. As he was like, well, we're kind of thinking about this. Maybe this could be an opportunity, you know. And as it got closer and closer, it really didn't. I don't think it actually set in until he was on that stage announcing, and I was standing backstage, and I was like shaking and crying and everything. And I think it really hit me that it was actually happening. So I was originally very naive about the process and what it would mean for us, our relationship, our anonymity, the mental health, everything that you'll go through. But wouldn't trade it for the world, but it was definitely an opportunity for growth. And I think maybe you're right. I will have another book in me. At some time I'll get to tell more.
So having been someone that's been interested in political partners, political spouses, I'm obsessing over this CNN First Ladies series right now. It is a job, like you say, that has a lot of expectations, but that doesn't have a blueprint for it. It is something where if you're doing your job correctly, it's that you've done everything perfectly. If you've done one thing wrong, it's a catastrophe and people notice. Was there a point in this where you really understood how much your life was going to change, or where you got afraid that you would be losing Chasten as part of Team Pete?
Yeah, there were all of those things. It was very confusing and frustrating at times, that it seemed that people had a lot of expectations about who you should be and what you should say and what you should wear. My God, the amount of times people told me what I should be wearing, where I should be going and who I should be talking to and what I shouldn't be doing. And the amount of times people told me to go home and disappear and stop reminding the country that Pete's gay and just let him win, and then you can go to the White House, as if that was, my childhood dream. And I just refused to be somebody else. I went through too much those first couple months of the campaign, trying to figure out who to be. And then I realized the more I open up, the more vulnerable I am, the more people feel connected to me and the campaign, and the better I feel about being in this position, And so it, like you said, if you're doing everything right, there is no praise. And if you step out of line just slightly, hellfire. And that was a very, very confusing tightrope to walk, especially because the campaign was so historic, that I felt like a lot of people had an idea of like what a gay candidate should look like, what a campaign should look like, and sound like, and prioritize. And I just had to be me, and I just had to trust that would be enough.
One of the moments that really touched me was later on in the campaign. You talked about finally feeling comfortable enough to set your own agenda. You said, I want to see schools. I want to talk to queer kids. I want to talk to theater groups.
Yeah.
What was the process of arriving at a place where you felt like, I know that I can be an asset, but I have to be chastened to do it?
I mean, we're like halfway through the campaign, and I'll be very candid. I hate fundraising. I hate that this is the way our system is set up. Pete was a long shot candidate. We had no money. We had 4 volunteers when we started, and no money in the bank, right? And so we had to fundraise a lot. And it turned out that people wanted to meet me and hear what I had to say. And so they kept asking me to host more fundraising. So I started saying, like, fine, you can fly me to wherever to do a fundraiser. But when we're there, I want to meet with teachers. I want to meet with artists. I want to tour the local community theater. I want to tour their LGBTQ center. And pretty much everywhere they sent me, we had, 2 or 3 out of those 4 things scheduled. I never felt like I was doing the best work when I was at a fundraiser. And so when I was at fundraisers, I think people think there's just like all this smoke and mirrors. You don't get that with me. I would go in there and there'd be all these like very fancy people in very fancy places who were very well accomplished. And I was like, hey, what's up? I was a closeted queer kid in Michigan, and here's my mom's experience with cancer, and here's my experience with student debt. And I just was, I just put it all out there, I think. And I think some people liked that. But I just never really felt like that is what I was meant to do. It didn't make me feel as fulfilled as when I left school every day. But I knew it was such a critical and important part of the process. And I met amazing people along the way. And the fundraisers were always lovely because these people believe in your husband, right? But I told the team, like, I am prioritizing these things, and finally got to the point where I felt like, you know what, this is who I am. This is what I value. And this is what I'm going to do. And also felt like I had the ability to say, and if you don't like that, then I can go home, because I'm not going to put myself out there and feel terrible every day. I'm going to do what makes me happy and makes me feel like I'm being of assistance, but it's also going to build me up as well.
This book is so much to me, especially in the later chapters, about you finding your voice, not only in the campaign, but in your life as a gay man, in your life as a son, in your life as a partner. Before we get on to our rapid fire questions, I want to ask you what the future is for that voice. How do you plan to use it going forward? Is it more supportive Pete? Is it more books? I know you and Pete have talked about starting a family.
Yeah.
What do you see down the road once we have this pandemic under control? Might a move to DC possibly be in the works if certain things go a certain way next week?
I don't know. I really don't. And that's also a really hard thing for me too. I've spent the last 2 years waiting, and of course growing. And I love the opportunity to tell my story and share this book, but it's not the same as going to the classroom every day, right? And I just want to make sure that whatever I do, and this is the real answer, it's not the political answer, because I feel like sometimes you can just tell.
I don't think we've gotten many political answers tonight, Chasten.
I just want to be helpful. I really do. I love that feeling where at the end of the day, you're like, I did everything that I could and I'm contributing to something bigger than myself. And that's what I felt as a teacher. So if I can be back in the classroom, I would love that. I want to make sure I'm part of this like sort of new wave movement of telling more queer stories. And I want to make sure I'm helping uplift other people. And whatever I do with this platform, I just want to feel at the end of the day, I am being helpful and of service. And who knows what's in store for Pete. The thing I do know is, yes, we want to start a family. And that is the most exciting thing to me right now.
I will say, having a queer teacher in front of a classroom, I think it's as important as having a queer person that writes a book about their experience. So I would hope that there are some generations of students that will get that experience with you.
I hope so, yeah. And just not with me, but I hope we build a country where more teachers feel safe in their identity, that they won't lose their jobs, safer in their country and their communities, where they can talk about their identity and their love and their partners in their classroom, because that will save lives too.
I hope that more students get copies of Priscilla and Angels in America and Hedvig and every other great queer piece of work so they can find themselves.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that we're not going to have time to take audience questions, but I did want to wrap up Chasten with a couple of quick rapid fire questions, which is sort of a tradition in ending interviews. So don't think too...
If the audience submitted questions, feel free to tag me on Twitter and we can try to answer a couple more.
That is very generous of you.
You got it.
So clear your minds. Don't think too hard. Just say the first... Just answer honestly with the first thing in your head. So beach or mountains?
Beach.
Favorite color?
Blue.
Figure in history that you identify with at this moment?
We went from colors to that. Harvey Milk.
Harvey Milk. Okay, you know your audience. Complete this sentence. When I am down, my husband knows that blank will cheer me up.
Sugar.
Sugar. Okay, honest answer. I thought you might say some dairy products. You know, dairy products show up a lot in your book.
Well, ice cream is sugar, so.
Okay, so it's a combo. Best vacation?
Oh, Pete took me to Malta, where his father was from, and that was amazing.
Okay, favorite RuPaul's Drag Race queen?
This is a very political question. I'm going to get hate for it.
I will give you a hint. If you say Honey Mahogany, she's local and she's in Democratic politics.
You don't name musicals, you don't name drag queens, but I just recently watched Trixie Mattel's documentary on Netflix, and I really appreciated it. And she's a Midwest queen, so.
I'm going to say that might be the one political answer you've given so far. Well done.
I mean, okay, whatever. I'll shut up.
No, I'm sorry. Please go on.
Nope, I'm not gonna.
Okay, most overused word in your vocabulary.
Like.
A millennial. Total millennial.
Such a bad habit.
Opera or ballet?
Opera.
Smell that reminds you of your childhood.
Ooh. Chlorine or fresh cut grass?
The above ground pool. I get ya.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite superhero?
My favorite superhero?
Yes.
Was never really a superhero kid.
Okay, we can skip that one. Music.
Spider-Man has a nice outfit.
Musical you'll never get tired of.
Ooh. Les Mis.
Favorite political spouse in history? Can't be a current one.
Too political.
Too political. Okay.
Gosh, I don't know. I will say I like carried Michelle Obama's book with me everywhere as I was writing this book and was rereading it. But this is supposed to be rapid fire, so I'll shut up.
Okay, so this question is in honor of my favorite of your first tweets I discovered. Beyonce song that you can return to over and over again.
Love on Top.
Okay, that's great. The first tweet that I saw of yours was you misspelled Beyonce, directed at your husband. And I thought, I like it. I thought, we'll get along. Like, this is going to be good. I didn't even know I'd be interviewing you one day. Book you could read 1,000 times.
Oh, God. It's supposed to be rapid fire and nothing is coming to mind.
Okay, let's skip it. Season that you love.
The political answer would be like the Bible.
Okay, we'll accept that.
That's not my answer. Okay, go ahead.
Favorite season?
Fall.
Fall. TV show that you're streaming right now?
Oh, we just finished Schitt's Creek, and I just binged Emily in Paris the last couple days. So I'm on the hunt for a new one.
Ah, okay. Maybe somebody can tweet you some recommendations.
That would be great. I've heard about this chess show on Netflix. It sounds intriguing to me.
Okay, anyone that knows about this chess show that can give an endorsement, let him know on Twitter.
Thank you.
What was your campaign trail go-to shoe?
Oh, they're right here. Do you want to see them?
Absolutely.
I just got them out. I bought these boots in an airport, and they're great because you can dress them up, dress them down. They have this nice little felt on the side. Very New Hampshire and Iowa.
We got a little show and tell tonight in addition to rapid fire. I love it. Go-to meal.
Ooh, if I'm up here up north, I love my mom's pasties or meatloaf. Pasties are like very Michigan. You familiar?
No, California vegan. No, unfamiliar.
What? Yeah, I'm like a meat and potatoes kid, but I do love like a good pasta too.
Okay, sweetest gift that Pete has given you.
Oh, he makes homemade cards for anniversaries and birthdays, which I really appreciate. Sweetest gift. Well, he did buy me that suit the first time when he wanted to take me to the White House Christmas party, and I had
Banana Republic suit.
Yes, I had never owned a suit in my life, and that was really special.
Okay, and what do you want people to say after they read your book?
Publicly?
Sure.
I just hope people feel better after reading it. I hope they feel less alone. I hope they feel seen. And so whatever they say, that would mean that's how they feel, that would mean the world to me. It's the only reason I wrote the book and agreed to write the book. It's because I thought it could do some good. So I really do hope it does. And I hope it means something to other people. So,
Chasten, it's been such a pleasure getting to chat with you about art, about the campaign trail, about what it is to be a member of this community in this very interesting time. Joni, I want to turn it back over to you. Thank you so much to the Gay Men's Chorus and to Joni for having us.
Thank you, Tony.
Hi. Oh, can you hear me? Am I
Yeah.
mute? Oh, good. So I learned a ton. Most importantly, I had grown up with like, don't talk religion at the table, don't talk money, whatever, but the don't name musicals and don't name drag queens. I really, it's a big takeaway for me. I needed that.
I know my audience. I don't.
Well,
I hope I didn't get you in trouble.
For all the things that I've been canceled for, I will not. I do not want to go in that territory.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going to bone up on drag queens. My daughter's going to read me the riot act because we're supposed to talk about that stuff. And I do have a favorite musical. No one's asking me. But what I want to represent that we have not lost a person all this time. And I want to thank the audience for staying. I don't know how you could have logged out. This was incredible. You both captivating. You're both so dear to me and so dear to, I'm sure, everyone in your lives. But thank you for being here, and thank you to our audience for coming. Thank you for your patience with the tech glitch. We are going to have, or the SFGMC is going to have this on YouTube tomorrow, so you can watch and watch again, and probably take notes and learn as I've done tonight. And just gratitude all around. I love you both. I love everyone for being here. And I'm so grateful again to Orinda Books, Dog-Eared Books, and the Castro, to our great friends at the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. And just go, let's just all stick together for the next week and think good thoughts. And maybe we'll reconvene with, what do you drink, Chasten? You drink beer?
Oh, tonight I'm having cider.
Cider.
I'll go with anything once we win next week.
Yeah, I'm just, whether it's tequila or beer or cider or I don't know, but we'll regroup. Anyway, everyone, thank you so much again. We are grateful to you for your support. And thank you, Chasten. Thank you, Tony. And much love to everyone. Be well. And thank you.
See ya. Thanks.